Welcome back to the First to Last the Nerdum, the show. Excuse me. uh, welcome back to First. Welcome back to First Last Podcast. Good grief, I did not read that ahead of time. You can tell the show from the First to Last the Nerdum, where we explore cinema in its most stylish, shocking, and subversive. This month, we continue our deep roll into Giallo January, celebrating the Italian thriller genre that turned murder into art and mystery into obsession. This week, we're taking a turn into darker, more unsettling territory with the 1972 Giallo, Don't Torture a Duckling, directed by Lucio Fulci, right? Anyway, often cited as one of the often cited as one of the genre's most disturbing and socially conscientious entity. Okay, whatever. This film strips away some of Giallo's glamour to deliver something raw, bleak, and deeply uncomfortable. Set in a rural Italian village, Don't Torture a Duckling blends brutal murder with themes of superstition, religious hypocrisy, and collective guilt. It's a film that uses Giallo's conventions to critique society itself, pairing shocking violence with a haunting atmosphere that lingers long after the credits roll. We'll be talking about Fulci's approach to the genre and how the film stands apart from its more flamboyant contemporaries, and why Don't Torture a Duckling remains one of the most powerful and disturbing giallos ever made. So prepare yourself for a story where innocence is shattered, secrets fester, and the horror cuts deeper than the knife. This is the First Last Podcast. From the First to Last the Nerdum, Giallo January continues with Don't Torture a Duckling. Oh my
There you go.
goodness. I am so I apologize to everybody who saw that. It is what it is. But here we are.
It is what it is. Hey,
Yeah.
if you're gonna fall down the stairs, might as well hit every step on the way, right?
That's right. That's right. That's right. Yeah, yeah. No.
No,
Yeah.
we've all had those moments. So yeah,
Yeah, and you know
no
what?
sweat.
You know what? I try to, I even got better at reminding myself to, like, if we did, like, cover a show, happens infrequently, like, where we'll cover we'll cover um, uh, like a foreign one or, something with like a
Mhm.
lot of different names, not
Yeah,
non-English names. And I will even tell the AI, like, when I tell it to give me the plot thing, give me the Easter eggs and this and that for the show notes. And I'll say, if I remember it, I'll be like, give me a pronunciation guide. What- anyway, I have belabored long enough, and
yeah.
God
Don't
bless you
don't
for sticking that wrong.
don't torture a language.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
No,
right. Yeah,
yeah. As far as Lucio or Lucio, yeah,
bless you.
I've heard pronounced different ways.
Well, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, his last name I think it's Feluccio, but I could
Lucio.
be
Yeah,
wrong. Yeah.
yeah. Well,
Actually, I should know because in the extras, um, he recorded an interview for someone and he ended it with saying his name, but I don't remember exactly how he pronounced it. But everyone I've heard usually says Feluccio, so there you
absolutely.
go.
Yeah, yeah. I enjoyed last week's and this week's is going to be I'm even more enjoying this one than the other one because it's just so different. And there's nothing wrong with the last one that we did, but it's just it is a definite contrast to what you would think, and what, at least if you have breathing room with a giallo and you kind of understand the concept and you expect certain things. This delivered on it, but in a completely different way. And I love that. I love that. But first, we have to pay the bills, so to speak. So I'm
Mhm.
just going to take about 30 seconds, and we're going to roll through these. And I'll let Tom. Tom doesn't have to take 30 seconds because when I hand it back to him. But we are the First Last Nerdum, firstlastnerdum.com. You can find us there, as well as home base on YouTube for all of the wonderful things. Check out this coming week, this Wednesday, a Flipping the Pages, where Tom and I dissect Catwoman. So that's coming up this coming week. And with that, I'll throw it back to you, Tom.
Yes, I'm on Reddit under First Last Nerdum. You may have saw my post there and came over, so hello if you did. But also I am on X under First Last Nerdum. So if you want to To know what our latest greatest video is, I'll post it there and along with other nerdy stuff. And Mike, you have some social media.
I do. I am also on the X, at Sofa King Jewish underscore. You can find me, and you can find me and Tom going back and forth with the things. There's been a lot of really great movies coming out that we might get into at the very end of the show, in a little side talk. But anyway, this is Don't Torture a Duckling. And as we said before, it is a completely different giallo than I would say that I have seen up to this point, which isn't a whole lot of them, but it's more than nothing. But it's a lot less than being an expert. So,
Mhm.
in other words, I know nothing other than just being a fan. With that being said,
Yeah, and just to set things up, if you're American, you probably are a little long in the teeth like me and somewhat Mike. But this movie, well, if you're not Quentin Tarantino, of course, he's seen everything under the sun. But this movie wasn't available in America outside, bootlegs or whatever until 2000, I think. It came out on Anchor Bay on DVD and VHS, and I guess there was a bit of a hoopla about it because I was excited about it when it came out in 2000, and I got it on DVD and watched it then. So I was familiar with this, and I remember enjoying it, liking it, but yeah, I hadn't seen it since then. So that was when I was getting into, I was into Giallo because of Dario, but that's all I'd seen was Dario's Giallos. So this was my first foray into non-Dario Giallos. So it was exciting and quite a bit different than Dario's releases. So it was quite interesting and quite different, like I was saying. But yeah, so revisiting it, now I got the beautiful 4K of it with the I used that cover on our thumbnail, but it's a beautiful slipcase with that cover, and then there's another kind of cool cover underneath. A lot of cool extra stuffs in this. There's a commentary that I wasn't. He goes into a lot of details about the actors. I don't know what about commentaries where they feel like they have to list the acting credits for everybody.
yeah,
I don't know. When you would listen to a
yeah,
commentary about a particular movie, you're wanting to hear about that movie. So, but there was a lot of really cool interviews. Like I said, there's a long almost hour-long interview. It was just taped conversation. Well, it's just Lucio answering questions that were sent to him. About hour long about that with him, and that's kind of fascinating from 1988. And then there's a lot of different interviews with the two of the actresses and little things. We'll get a little bit more into this, but this is "Don't Torture a Duckling," and so set the stage. It's about a little community down in South Italy
yes.
that some murders start happening of small young boys, and there's the community gets up in arms and starts maybe accusing different people, and yeah, it's more of a mystery than the previous 2 that we talked about, and, there's a lot of false leads, and I think the plot of this is, a lot more fascinating. The first one, Opera, was more flashier and really operatic, and then the last one was more of, an emotional power keg
It,
between, couples, and this one's more of
it
a community thing.
It the last one, I think that and it's not like I didn't connect with it. I just think that there was a lot going on, and it was just hard for you to connect to just any kind of one because 'cause they're all awful people. We talked about this before at length, obviously, but this one was like it was a little bit more relaxed. It was a little grosser in some ways, but it sets this up. This is, rural Southern Italy, and, Exandura, I butchered that. There's a child killer on the loose. You have this the typical giallo. You have the local police driven, by incompetence and by the pressure. And this is the one thing that I think that The other Giallo did get into it. It had commentary too, a little bit, or kind of layered. I mean, you could easily go there if you want
Yeah,
to. I'm saying, but this one,
right.
same thing. But I love that it does. But it does it in such a more subtler way to like where it's not in your face. But anyway, you have this thing, you have the locals. They kind of have a little bit of a different storytelling of a mob version of this. There's that in it, but anyway, kind of hand it off to you. Something to talk about.
Yeah.
Macaria is by played by Vulcan, the local witch scapegoat, and then you have Patrizia, the femme fatale, very sexy, wealthy outsider, and
Mhm.
Andrea
Plus, possible
Martelli.
pedophile.
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely. No, yeah, well, that's just the overtones of this, like where it will absolutely drape a foot over the line, but not quite touch the ground on the other side. But it'll go over the line, but won't quite, or it'll look like. And so anyway, it has that tension there too. I watched this and I was like, oh my god, is this? What am I? There, and that wasn't the only scene, and not because it was so shocking or whatever, but just how it was just very interesting um how innocence is played out. Anyway, I'll throw that back to you, Tom.
Yeah.
That's enough of me yapping. I'm very curious to see what you thought. Anyway, this was compelling to me and pulled me in far more than last week's. And operas pulled me in. It just pulled me in a different way, and I was just like compelled to watch. You can't like once you get sucked in with these things, you can't stop help. I don't know about you, but that's how it happens with. I know I'm into a giallo like when it pulls me in and I can't not look.
Yeah, and this has a, a banger intro. You got this. Well, it looks like this derelict woman digging up a small child, the bones of a small child. What the hell's going on here? But yeah, so it's got a lot of things going on with it. I was going to step back just a moment, and there's a really great little segment in uh, I should have got his name, but there's a little segment in the on the 4K where the guy kind of he's written a couple books on giallo and various things, and he gets really into the history of giallos. And one of the things he points out is how Italians watched movies back then, and they're the movies came out in say the rural areas, like where this movie takes place. Movies that they actually went to the movies daily. So there was like a constant rotation of various movies that are going through there, and a lot of people would go and would watch, and it was more of a social community kind of thing, and they would all kind of sit around and talk during the movie, which is a nightmare for cinephiles, but they would talk, and so they movies needed that's almost why they had these kind of shocking moments throughout the movie, so people would stop talking like, oh my god, what's going on here, and they would watch for a little bit and then go back to talking. So they weren't real too invested in the movie. And he also talked about the differences between the north and the south of Italy, much like America's north and south. The north of Italy became much more modern, and a lot of the people from the south would go up to the north for work. But yeah, there was a definite divide between the more rural south Italy as opposed to the more modern northern Italy. And the fact that most giallos are more urban based, more towards the north. And we're by happenstance, uh, this one and last week's are more rural, more on the outlier of giallos. Like I said, most of them take place in the city. This one takes definite place in the south of Italy, and you can see the struggles with retaining what was the South. Maybe the old superstitions about the witches and whatnot. And he's very, you can tell that he's very conscious of. He's not sugarcoating the South. of their, with their um prejudices against various people. But he also kind of highlights how the modern Italy is kind of invading the rule, and it's starkly shown with the that highway, that modern highway, almost cutting a gash across the beautiful country's landscape of southern Italy. It's so beautiful. Then you see this this ugly highway just cutting across it. So, and you also have these these northerners coming down, and the commissioner that comes down to investigate, and he's makes all these comments about these rural bumpkins. There's a lady that gets murdered, and she gets he goes, this is what you get, with your superstitions. And so, and then you also have, like you said, the even though she's from the area, she's never lived there, and that the socialite woman that comes down, and and the reporter that comes in to investigate as well. You have those outsiders that become people become suspicious of in this. But yeah, listening to that, and it gave me an extra kind of layer of depth to this movie. It's a very interesting social commentary. You don't usually get that with your giallo, but it's not something that kind of beats you over the head. It does a little bit towards the middle with the death of one of the characters, but yeah, it's done in a really fascinating, and maybe because we're not from Italy, we have kind of an outsider's kind of look at things, so it's more of a we don't have a stake in the in the fight, so we could be more observers. Whereas if something social is being said about America, we do have kind of a stance on that. But watching what's going on in this film, it's more of a kind of a study. You don't have to have a leg in the fight.
Yeah, no, there. This one, the mystery has a lot more of a central element to it than like a typical giallo, like where you are pretty much shown the killer. I mean, it didn't take too long to figure it out because that's kind of the perspective. But this one takes a little bit more of a measured approach as far as that goes, and you kind of go through. And I was surprised on more than one corner that you turn in this, uh, which lended to it being more enjoyable because, like you, on some things you go, you can't believe you're seeing that, and then you're like, okay, and then it gives into something else, and it's like, whoa, like,
Absolutely.
geez, yeah. I mean, it doesn't have like this one has its definite, it had a budget. It had a budget that comes through in some small areas, but for the most part, I think it's pretty well good. I was able to find a good dub or whatever was out there
Yeah.
for it. And the other thing too I like about this is that it's available on a few different places too. I believe it's out there, but
Yep.
I
Tubi
really
has it, doesn't it?
I think so. Yeah, I think Plex has it too, but I'll find those. I'll pull those up here in a minute. But the Giallo, just this, the I don't know. Like, I, it's kind of hard to go because like when you're introduced to these people, you're like, okay. Especially, I kind of was a little bit burnt by the last one, a little bit. Not burnt so much, but like a little bit drier than that. I was like, okay, how awful are these people now? But it captures it very well, and tells the tale, and I think it's pretty quickly paced too
Yeah, and
for the story you get.
I love the realism of this movie. You're introduced to these prostitutes that show up in town. You're used to, in a movie, the prostitutes looking more like Barbara Boucher, who's the socialite in this movie, that comes to town. These prostitutes are a little lived in. They've been at work for a while, and Yeah, that's more probably more realistic of what would show up to these rural towns to get a few dollars from the the guys there that are needing a little affection or, or a little just you know but yeah, and then the kids there's a lot of times with movies with children in it, especially with this, they would especially with them being killed, you would it may be more advantageous to make them more, more like angels, more, idealized versions. But right off, you're seeing these kids. One of them's like killing a lizard with a rock, and they're smoking. They're ditching confession. They're they're up to no good. Like a young 12-year-old would be doing. And it's that realism that really hits you. Yeah, that it's and also the rural town and everything. It just especially they actually use them as extras and whatnot. So there's that sense of realism that you're really there. Obviously they're telling a particular story, but it kind of adds weight to what's all going on. One of the things I noticed in the credits, the three young boys that are kind of spotlighted that become the victims, they don't get credits for that, which is normally in I guess maybe that's the way it is back then, but yeah, unfortunately they don't have credits, so we don't know their real names. They do a fine job with their performances. Like I said, you believe what's happening up on the screen, and that really pulls you in into the story. I really enjoyed that part of it. And also there's also that scene early on where we kind of danced around it, but Barbara Pouchet, who's plays Patricia, there one of the boys brings up a tray of orange juice up to her, and she's in the buff, and there's like a little conversation of what the young boy's done with the young girls, and maybe a proposition of something happening, and it's very uncomfortable. Very, I believe it was uncomfortable during the 70s as well. Very shocking, and not something you see on the usually you see it on the other end of things, with a maybe a lecherous man and a young lady, but yeah, with this, with it being turned, it's kind of has a different dynamic, but it's equally as creepy.
It it has this incredibly tense, sweaty
Hmm.
feel.
Yeah,
Like,
the boy's sweating.
yeah, and so are you. I mean, you're just like, "What am I seeing?" That,
Hmm.
and that's not the only scene like that in the movie. I mean,
Yeah, there's scenes that really challenge you.
absolutely. Yeah, no, this is why this murder mystery was more that the mystery hit more of a murder. It hit more of as a noir to me. That's probably why I liked it so much, because
Yeah,
it was hitting the noir element
the
quite a bit
beats.
harder than like a typical giallo. You could loosely overlap them and say they're similar, but they're not really. But
Right.
this one is
It
one
really
of many scenes.
yeah. Yeah, it really presses the point that anything can happen in this, and
And it lingers too. It lingers. That's the other thing too. And they take their time. I mean, there's something that that modern filmmaking that we lost was, the amount of course, the 50s, 60s, and 70s were known for this, like where they would linger on a shot, and it would be, you know, the original Ocean's 11, or whatever, the original 60s version that Sinatra,
mhm,
like, if you ever watch that, it is a far different movie making way than they do here. But this leans in, everything is centered, and focused. The world building is really great. That I appreciate. You commented on the realism of it. I just love how colorful it is, and you actually see as close to real life, I guess, as for a movie, like everyday life for these people, these characters, what they're living in. Something that very few directors can do very well, like, or make you
yeah.
care anyway.
Yeah, you really feel like you know know this town by the end of it. You're there. You've lived through it. You've kind of gone through the ringer with this one. But yeah, it's and then also, one of the interesting things with this movie is especially with the kills, there's sort of a handheldness to it. You know, the camera is like, yeah, they didn't have steady cams back then, you know, when they so it was very much a choice to do handheld. So it was especially with that first one, you know, when the killer's coming at the child, you know, you see the rocking of the camera, and it's almost much more visceral, you know, with the steady cam. You lose that and it becomes, you know, more of a, you know, kind of otherworldly kind of thing, because you know you don't normally move like that. But if a killer's, you know, running up on a child, you do get that. Yeah, if you're coming from their perspective, you're getting that herky jerky kind of move with the camera, and that just makes it even that much more visceral. And like you were saying, all the scenes, everybody really lived in, like the kids sweating, and like later they go to visit the local witch doctor, and you know, so you know, one of the police officers, yeah, he's sweating profusely as well. It's just a really really grime and gritty kind of movie that's really lived in. I was also going to double back on that one scene with the lady and the young boy. um you know, you're it's kinda shocking. You're like, "Oh my god, is that kid there?" And, a lot of people, were shocked when they saw this movie. It might have been one of the reasons why it didn't come to America, and that, and
Mm.
maybe some other things that were there. But the the director and, the actress that was in the scene, they were all brought into, I don't know if it was, they said that Lucio was arrested initially, but
Wow.
they were brought in for questioning about that scene, and they had to explain that the scenes where it looks like the boy's there, that's actually a dwarf, a guy of small stature that's
Wow.
in for the child, and so the child was never there with the woman.
Right.
In fact, the little boy goes, "What?" You know, they interviewed him after the fact. He's out. "Oh, I would have loved to have been there, but no, I was not on set that day." And he said, in fact, he wasn't. It was until he was 15 before he actually got to see the movie. His parents didn't let him see it, so he didn't actually get to
That's
see
so
what
funny.
was going on in that scene until much later for himself, when he was emotionally old enough to
Well,
see that.
and these kind of are, in a way, they're, I don't wanna say that they're playing on that, Virgin Madonna complex at all, but there is a push and a pull there, like, where, you know, like, I think we both agree the atmosphere is a character in the film, but
Mhm.
you have, you know, Balkan's the witch character, you know, you have her digging up a baby bones, literally baby bones, you know, and then you have this
Mhm.
intense sweaty scene with Patrizia, and then you kind of have this thing, and like you feel like these people, you care, like you're also kind of like, you're in and out a lot of different places. You're kind of like, I like that it doesn't follow a normal thing, like a normal English film, like that I
Mhm.
would be used to, because like when you don't quite know what to expect next, you kind of tend to pay more attention, I guess. I don't know. That's what I found myself doing. But anyway,
Yeah, yeah, whenever you can some movies you can sleepwalk through because you know what's gonna happen next, even though you haven't seen it yet. You know the conventions of the movie.
like, I'll give you an example. Like recently, as of time that we did the show, that this was the latest new show that came out on Netflix, which is, I guess this is the standard now, with Matt Damon and Ben Affleck, is The Rip. You know, that is a show that you can walk away from and come back, and you know, like you
Mhm.
don't. It's a more modern, you know, thing down. Like this is so different, and the other thing too, I like how they play with superstition, you know, right off the bat, you know, like there's something outside, but it's a different kind of superstition. It's not like the metaphysical or the, you know, kind of the eerie kind of thing out there. It's more much more grounded than that. But it's
Yeah,
still
absolutely.
jarring what you
Mhm.
see because there's a little
Yeah.
bit of some kind of a thing. And I love that they don't explain it. They don't go into it. They don't explain it. You kind of familiar with like, okay, there are these disgusting, these dolls and these things happen to there is a certain sequence of things like, whereas normally it would be like a black glove killer. It's more like a dirty fingered killer.
Mhm. Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
not really, but I mean, that's the other thing too. They kind of break a little bit of distinction with the things for. Anyway, I don't want to go. I'll pause there because if I go too much further, I'm going to spoil the thing. I don't think we're there yet. So
Right. Yeah. Well, yeah, the one of the things that was absolutely fascinating to me is Marchera, the sort of the witch woman.
sure, okay,
She's
I'm
yeah.
saying it wrong.
Oh well, I could be wrong too. But she's fascinating. There's a lot of fascinating characters, and there's a big scene where where she confesses in the police station. That was the only set is the police station. Everything else was shot in location. But yeah, she confesses in you can tell that she's kind of mad, but you learn and then from that, and also there's a scene where they're looking for her, and the two police officers are having a conversation about her history. You hear it, and you understand her tragic story. She's and you see it in the police station. She's prone to these epileptic fits, and the rural area, they're superstitious. They think the devil's in her, and I believe something happens to her parents, and she ends up you know with staying with this witch doctor that's supposed to get the devil out of her. And he's sort of like the beloved kind of a superstitious guy that they go for the little trinkets and whatnot, and he's kind of tied to the church, but he's more grim and grimier than anyone else. I mean, that young woman sent to him to for him to get the devil out, and he he impregnates her with the child that no one knows, that everybody kind of knows about but never seen, and just kind of looks away. And the child dies under mysterious circumstances. That's what we learned, that's what the bones are, is the her child. And you just know, you don't know the full story. You just hear the little rumors and whatnot, but you know that she's lived this tragic life, just really messed up. No one understands who she is, and she's a complete outsider, with no one to really turn to except for the guy that potentially abused her when she was young and put a child in her.
Well,
There's a
yeah.
lot of dark history. That's one of the things I love about these type movies where it takes place in a town, and one of them that's in the forefront of my mind is Twin Peaks. A lot more, very very different kind of thing, but it has all those elements of dark secrets and various things that are going on in
You're
this
no way.
town.
Yeah.
On the surface, it looks like a kind of picturesque and sort of rural town that you might want to live there, but then you get underneath the surface and you get into all these dark histories, and you understand the prejudices of the town, and the dark secrets of various people, and it just, there's so many layers to it that you just can't help but want to dig in through those. But yeah, and the scene where she's confessing, you at this point, she hasn't killed these children, but she has
Well,
she's it's in her mind that she's done it because of the witchcraft that she's performed.
that and the other thing too is you can very clearly see that she's not guilty, right?
Right, yeah.
Because you can obviously see that she's she's obviously been through a lot of shit. You only know a portion of it. And you don't really know, and really you don't know that much, to be honest, like you were saying.
Mhm.
But she's just emotionally distraught.
Mhm.
You can tell that she's not been well for a very long time, and maybe has gotten picked on, maybe a little bit, but unfortunately for her, but she's not the only one that takes a turn at as being I guess,
Right.
as we kind of rotate through the village. It's not the village idiot. Is it this? It just gets more bizarre. And the other thing too is like the cops are like, there's like that one kind of third tertiary guy. He's kind of like he's older, and he kind of just like adds in to the dialogue of like, I knew all along that it's like, no, you didn't. And it's like, and it's like, and then you also kind of get this very much 70s vibe of like, I don't know, it's just a different attitude that we have today. Plus, it obviously was in Italy too, but there's some things that are translate that stick around for like the kind of like back then people were just coming out of in the 50s, the 40s and the 50s and the 60s to a certain degree, not the late 60s, but you were kind of you were brought up to believe in the priest and the teacher and the cop and and the mayor and like the authority figures, I guess is what you
Mhm.
would call them. And that's the other thing too. I had to remind myself of like that back then. It's not like today, like where people are just as likely to flip off the somebody from the government as they are, somebody down the street. Like you just don't hold those sensibilities like we used to.
Right.
Good old days or whatever you want to call them, whatever that
Yeah.
means. But
Yeah, if a
um,
cops bring someone in for questioning, they're guilty. Yeah, that was the
but yeah,
mentality, back then,
but yeah.
and then if they release them, it's like, "What the hell are they doing?" That's when they would get mad at authority. It's case solved whenever and that was one of
Well,
the
they're very lazy too, but they round up the idiot and then they round up the other, essentially the other village,
well,
essentially the other bully, down, vulnerable, down and outcast person, kind of.
right, and that's who you kinda look to, in that back then in those situations, you look for, that was the profile. We didn't have the fancy,
No, right.
FBI profiling back then. They just kinda look for the outsiders that have come into the town, and, they start questioning them. But yeah, they're in most of the giallos, the police are kind of bumbling idiots, whereas this case, they're not quite idiots.
No,
They're trying to follow the evidence. They're picking up people that the evidence kind of points to. Like the very first one, the village idiot or the guy that's not quite there. And he stumbles upon the body and he thinks he can make a quick buck. And yeah, and he gets arrested. And yeah, all these people, there's an interesting dichotomy of them being greasy and not likable, but also sympathetic in certain aspects as well. You know, they're very real, I guess I could say. There's not a clear protagonist. The only one that kind of comes close is the reporter who kind of has a flirtatious nature with the Patricia character. You find out a little bit later that he's actually married and has kids. And then you go, oh well, he's not as probably nice as you previously thought. Everybody has a little bit of a secret or a
the guy.
mystery about him. Yeah, there's something about him.
And he's not exactly, he's not exactly the protagonist type. He's kind of
Yeah,
this pencil wire thin
yeah.
dude, not particularly good looking, but he's definitely got the stash going for sure. But anyway, looks aside, I love what's the other kind of treat that you get in because the atmosphere in these characters and you get to see where they live and how they do this and that. Like you see that I dig the architecture. I always get a kick, probably also because I don't like the 70s styles per se, necessarily, but that era that flew through like the cars and the people and the talk and just the kind of the jive that people had and the paper,
Yeah.
the Italian paper, and it's very clearly what they're looking at. You don't need to know English, or I mean Italian, to do that. But anyway, I love that, and he's kind of rascally. He's no Tom Selleck. I joke about him, but he's a good enough actor. He does very well. He does.
And
You
that
know,
he the characters Andrea, and his name is Tomas Milian. But yeah, he actually it was a big deal at that time. He was a big Italian actor, so he was more he
He was there's Tom Selleck, right? Yeah, yeah. I stand corrected.
yeah, and in fact, there's a interview with Barbara Boucher on the 4K release, and she was talking about some of the behind the scenes drama on the set, and she said that when she got there, and she actually did 8 movies that year, so she was very much in demand. Yeah, a lot of them were kind of sex comedies that she was in, which you could kind of guess by her beauty that she might be in those type movies.
You don't say.
Yeah, she was drawn to this movie because it was a bit of a different story, and she says she didn't have any problem with doing the nudity and that and doing that scene because she said you're an actor when you get on set and they ask you to do something, you're supposed to do it. So you agreed to do it, so you might as well do it. But she also said that when she got there on location and she was at the hotel, she noticed that Aaron Pappas Irene Pappas shows up, and she plays the mother of the priest in the movie. She shows up with this piece of a hunk of man that everybody, all the women caught the eye of of this piece of meat that Irene
That's
showed up
funny.
with, and but Irene became infatuated with Tomas, the reporter guy on the movie and they had a little thing going and much like in the movie Tomas was married as well and his wife was there, so that caused a lot of behind the scenes drama, and Barbara said that she showed up on the at the pool with the piece of meat, the guy the hunk, and she said, hey, are you busy, what can we hang out, and so she hooked up with him. so so it was kind of interesting behind the scenes thing there, but yeah. But yeah, but getting back to the movie, yes, there is a big scene in this movie, that not that really knocked my socks off, and of course, it's going to get a little spoilery here, and I think we're at the point there where we're going to get
Yeah.
into spoilers. The witch gets released because they find evidence that she couldn't have done it. She wasn't at the scene, she was at the scene of another place when the murder happened of one of the boys. So they release her, but the bigoted uh uh fathers of the children that were killed are that are superstitious decide that they're going to take matters into their own hand, and they beat this woman to death in the cemetery, and I don't know what it is, but they really did it a lot of times with special effects and visual effects aren't up to snuff in most 70s movies. It looks a little fake, but I gotta tell you, it may be a little fake looking, but it was really visceral, and really you really felt the hits. They were beating this woman with chains and sticks and whatnot, and I don't know what it is, but it really had an impact on me in that scene. And I gotta say, yeah, Quentin Tarantino loves these movies, and I gotta think that maybe he picked up a little. There's the one of the uh people turns on a radio, and you get to hear these uh, is interesting dichotomy of these upbeat sort of rock songs playing against the woman being beat, and it immediately flashed to my mind a scene in Reservoir Dogs where
Mm.
Caught in the Middle of You is being played during a torture scene, and I gotta think that
God, yeah, yeah,
yeah
yeah,
that
yeah,
that
yeah, yeah.
Tarantino was influenced by that and kind of echoed that in Reservoir Dogs, and it's just as effective in this movie where this woman is being beat to the sounds of this upbeat music, and I don't know, there's you would think that more dramatic movie music would have been or maybe stark silence would have been more effective, but I don't know, it was more effective with that music going and playing, and then when she's dying and left there, it's more kind of a it's sort of an operatic kind of song that plays on the radio. and she crawls, she's not, immediately dead. She crawls to the wayside of the highway, this highway that's bisecting this rural area to maybe get some help. And
Mhm.
these cars are passing by on their holidays or whatnot, and they glance over and see her, and they just kind of keep on going. It's what well, something that we know happens. And it's just a tragic kind of a scene that really knocks you over the head and is very, very effective. It's filmed in the 70s, but I'm sure it's effective today as it is back then. It's just, it's a masterwork of just emotions that
Well,
get
they
played
they
out.
did they did a very good job of it, 'cause I flinched too. Like, I had this thing, and I was like, and the thing too is they do the same thing that Quentin does, which is he takes his time. He takes his time, and they he t and
Yeah.
did Lucio, and
Yeah,
that
it's really fascinating to see the sources of the inspiration for Tarantino.
they're just as brutal, if not a little bit more. And you've never seen a dead child in any Quentin Tarantino film that I'm aware of, that I can
Mhm,
think of, that I've pretty
mhm,
much seen all of them.
mhm.
I'm sure you have as well. But this doesn't happen. It happens in this film.
Yeah.
That's just one. That's just one, because they never do that. Not even like like, I mean, you might have some. I can't think of any whatever ones that would compare nowadays, because I'm not that guy. I'm not that, library encyclopedic knowledge of this stuff. But that's it is so misdirection, because you're so focused on on the horribleness, and it's so blatant, like how horrible it can really be, whether it's a child, whether it's, a mentally ill woman, or, a mentally ill idiot who just gets kind of shoved around, and he just kind of they just put him in whatever little box that they need to, and until they need to go get him, again,
Right.
or whatever. Yeah, and it was just very real. And the was the 2, this whole thing, you see all this stuff, and then you see, and I love how they do this, and we're at that part. I think I can say this at this point. You
Before
This
before
is
you before you get to that,
yeah,
just
yeah, yeah, go ahead.
real small. You've got the image there. I want to say it while you have it on there. The big connection between this movie and your Vices, which was last week, was J and B. I
Yeah,
noticed.
that's right. Yeah, 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 yeah. J&D. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know which one it was in more. I think it was in the other one more,
Yeah,
but
it
it was
was. It was.
definitely a character in this one as well. Yeah, that's why I joke. That's why it's I'm joking, because we had seen a few of these, and I had seen a couple more actually off the side that I would talk about. Because when you're just in a phase, you go through a phase.
Hmm.
But when we get to this point, you see all this horrible stuff happen up to this point, and you've seen the character before, and you kind of see these kind of off interactions with kind of you get to know who these people are a little bit, but then you start to see more of the priest,
Yeah.
and you don't even think about you essentially put the priest in a neutral category, kind of like the cops, like where
Hmm.
obviously the
Well, back
cops didn't
in
kill anybody, but
Well, back in the day, especially in the 70s, priests
yep. Oh,
were
that's why I said right.
put up on a
Teacher
pedestal.
authority, right.
Yeah, put on a pedestal, and especially in a Catholic
Mm.
country like Italy, that would be sacrosanct to say anything bad about a priest. So, he was above suspicion, so to speak.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And yeah, and we get to see what happens there. But yeah, so there's a lot of boundaries being crossed in this movie, left and right. Whereas, today, that may be one of the things that kind of lessens the impact today, is the priest element. Because today we know that the priests are human as well. And from all the controversies that's gone since. But at that time, that was very boundary crossing, what they were doing with him. And yeah, he comes across in this movie as a nice looking young man that's trying to steer the children, and he's a bit naive, it seems. And one of the things that they make a point to say during the killings is that they weren't sexually abused
No,
before they were killed. Um,
they also show him as being kind of they play him very straight. Like he kind of seems like the most reasonable, rational, normal from the appearance in the village of the people involved, because
Right.
you have this kind of offbeat reporter who's doing his own thing, the slush and glass of J and B, going perpetually wherever he's going. You got the sex pot over here,
Uh-huh.
you got the cool lounge in '70s, atmosphere, and you have all the stuff. Surely he
Yeah.
has nothing to do with anything.
Yeah, yeah, and with the sex pot, that's an interesting angle because, usually, that's the woman that you would, yeah, that the audience, the male, especially male audience would, kind of be attracted to, but you're kinda at a distance with her too immediately because, she's a creepoid with the child, and then later on, she has another interaction with the child that's, kinda off-putting. Well, actually, too, there's a deaf and dumb girl, that's kind of wandering around,
Yep, that's what I was. Yep, that's what
which is
I'm thinking of.
yeah, which was the sister of the with the
I was
priest,
like,
and she she like drags her to get her a new toy. It's like the child is definitely doesn't want to be with her.
well, and you say toy, and then everything in your brain is being like, what? Why do you want to give this child like a toy when you are nobody from nothing, and
Right,
we've already
absolutely.
seen. I've seen what you do, and so it's classic. Well, in that little interaction between her and the priest and the little girl, the little deaf mute girl, that is in the little microcosm of what of a classic giallo misdirection, where you're so focused on like, wait, why is this woman who has nothing to do, like, why is she trying to get this girl away or whatever? And then
Right.
you have this priest who comes over who's like acting very, very paternal about it, and you accept that because
Mhm.
like she's already starting to look weird,
Yeah,
and then and then
absolutely.
he's looking weird, but you accept that he's weird because, and he's really not being weird because he's playing the straight person,
Mhm,
the straight character who is supposed to be like the lady get away, like he's supposed to be the concerned citizen that comes in and goes shoo shoo, like go away.
mhm,
But it's just such a I love it. This is probably one of my favorite. Well, I really enjoy. I'll save the praise for later, but or where it fits in Mike's thing of this. But considering what it covers and how it covers it, I love that interaction. Like that blew me away like that because it's just such a offbeat, awkward, scene
mhm,
anyway. Like where it's just tension and conflict. They're just right there for you, and
mhm.
it's palatable.
Yeah, there's so many things you could kinda draw into it because you could also get into the history of Patricia. I mean, she's had a really bad, um, bring upbringing as well, with the rich father that probably is, ignored
Scandal
her.
ridden, right?
Yeah, exactly. She's probably had a messed up childhood. She's coming back to town because she got mixed up in drugs, and,
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
so she hasn't
That's right. I
probably
almost forgot about that. Yeah.
yeah, and when she gets to this town, she doesn't relate to anybody. The only persons that she can really talk to is the strange witch doctor guy, and so so she's really messed up herself, and so she probably doesn't have those she's probably has these weird relationships with adults even when she was a child. So maybe that's why she can't really relate to the adults and she's trying to relate to the children, but she's had such a messed up life that she can't really relate to them either and or connect with them in any appropriate way. And so yeah, she's she's almost a tragic figure in herself if she wasn't a creepoid as well.
Oh, right. Any sympathy for any of these people just goes. It's not quite as bad as the as last week's, but it. I mean, I think the difference though is that it's just they're more compelling. I guess I don't know. Like you spend a little bit more. It's not with the other one. You're kind of jumping right into something, like kind of already happening. I mean, you are in a way with this one, but you don't really know what's going on until it's obvious. Like where yeah, it kind of sets it up where you can't
Yeah.
ignore it. And it's like that's who it was, and it's like, damn, anyway.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we're talking about both movies. I think I like this one a lot better than the previous one.
It's
But the
same.
previous one, previous
Nothing wrong with
movies,
the other one, but
yeah, no, the previous one really gets into the emotional dynamics between the different people, and it's a bit of a different type of movie that plays with emotions in a different way. Very fascinating. I love that movie as well. But I'm glad that we covered that one last week and this one this week because it's more of a an escalation of things. Because this movie, that movie kind of focused on one element, but this movie has so many elements to it that yeah, it's almost like yeah, it's a pre-Tarantino movie. It has all the stuff that a good Tarantino movie would have. Maybe not the snappy dialogue, but it's got all of the, I don't know, all the messy interactions of humans that can happen. Yeah, it's just a smorgasbord of various things of taboo things that and genre breaking and it's you can understand why it didn't make it to America because of so many different aspects of it that are controversial. But it's in you would think that the controversial aspects would be exploited in this movie, but it's just one of the things that happen in this movie. It's just
well, they don't
yeah, they
they
don't
don't
linger on
lean.
things.
Yeah, well, they don't purposely like lean in on it. It's just that you're in this town for this short period of time, and these things are happening, and you're gonna follow along for a little bit. It's not like it's trying to beat you over the head with something. Or since we're already in Act Three, you have the tension shift from who is the killer to can anyone stop them before they kill again? And you got the police chasing their tails. You got the town washing the blood off of Micaiah, her off their hands. And you got the Martelli, who's the only one who's putting anything together, and he's trying to see a
Right.
pattern with his bud, the sex plot,
Yeah. Yeah, and that it's kind of
and
yeah, it
that makes
becomes
sense
yeah.
actually. In their goofy little world.
Right, and so they track down who and they figure out who the killer is, or they think they have, but yeah, it's kind of fascinating, and obviously spoiler, and also if you haven't seen this movie and you've watched it this far, please see this movie. It's an amazing movie, well worth checking out. But yeah, so we find out that it's the priest that is doing it because they figure out that the young girl, the deaf and mute girl, is the one that's uh has seen the killer, because she's kind of reenacting it by taking the head off the dollies, not intentionally, but trying to strangle them
Or in a
and
very specific
popping
kind
off
of
the head.
way. Right.
Yeah, and the interesting thing about the title of the movie, it's either "Don't Torture a Duckling" or "Don't Torture Donald Duck," because the same word that Paparino duckling, that's what they call Donald Duck in
That's
Italy.
funny.
So yeah, so yeah, and Donald Duck is is one of the stars of this movie.
Well, you you have the sex pot drug addict who's cleared. The witch is dead. Like you said, the idiot, the dead, also innocent. The box is getting smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller.
Yeah. Yeah, and, yeah, and so we find out, we initially think and they think is the mother of the priest, and she's kind of a marginalized character too. They say almost like, the only reason she's still in the town is because of the priest, that, she's kind of an outsider as well, so she becomes she gets the focus. Outside, everybody, since he's kind of a spotless because he is a priest, he never gets the focus. He's part of the
Mm.
community. He's not an outsider.
It's like a
How could he
fixture
do
of
this?
right.
Yeah, yeah, and then we find out that it is him. And even though we have our history with things, and yes, it's a little bit of a surprise. Like, oh, it is a priest. Because I was right along with the idea. Okay, well, maybe it is the mother, and then we find out that we have that scene up on the hill, and
Right.
One of the things that doesn't quite work is
That was
they
funny.
they knock the priest off the edge and he comes tumbling down. The I don't know if it worked at that time, but yeah, you have the dummy hitting the rocks as it goes down. That's it doesn't quite work, but that's the only thing that doesn't work because the fight scene up at the top of the hill where first it's the news reporter fighting the guy, you're like, oh my gosh, yeah, he might, the priest might overtake him, and then the sex pot tries to save the day, and then finally the reporter knocks him over the side or pulls him over, and yeah.
The practical effect with the priest absolutely beamed Martelli like with a rock, and I was like, "You're getting up from that?" I was like, "Damn!"
Yeah,
I was
exactly.
like, I was like, but yeah, no, they were built different back then, but no, it worked. Yeah, obviously the dummy. That's the one thing that I was kind of hinting at a little bit, and there's a kind of a scene like where like when the things that they try to achieve unfortunately undercut what you're actually seeing. You kind of see that happen with the also the like the dead child. Like it gets a little fruity, a little floaty here or there, but it's still shocking, and it's still it's
Hmm.
that is the probably the worst scene in the movie is that doll. That
Yeah.
I mean the anim whatever, but action figure type doll like a what you would expect in a the old Dave skit. I can't think it was on Showtime, but anyway, he would do all the stupid skits, Evil Knievel. Anyway, it doesn't matter, but
Yeah, yeah,
um,
yeah. That and also one other thing, yeah. One of the
Dave
things that we
Osborne,
cover,
that's what
right? Dave Osborne,
Super Dave Osborne, yeah.
exactly.
Yeah, that's what it reminded me of.
But there's that show that we covered on Bingeworthy. haha, you idiots.
Oh, right, yeah, yeah.
The guy that does that show, he does kind of these paper mache head things, creatures that he does on YouTube, and the head cast for the dummy looks a lot like those.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I almost wondered if he was influenced by that as well. But yeah, this movie is pretty awesome. I was going to as we wrap things up, I was going to talk about the 4K again. Wonderful. If you're interested in this movie, you see it on Tubi or Plex or wherever. I did check; it is on Tubi. But yeah, if you're really into it, I highly recommend the 4K of this. Again, got the really cool covers, but they also have interviews. Like I said, they talked to Barbara Boucher. Also, they talked to Florinda Bolkin, the lady that plays. A very interesting interview. She actually lives near that town that they or one of the towns that they filmed in, and she talks about having coffee there recently. And one of the things I don't like about the interview is that they actually show her death scene to her. She has never seen it since she filmed it, and I don't know. She was just she's a very emotional older woman, and yeah, it's like showing your grandma, a death scene, and she goes, "Oh, I really feel sorry for this lady." Yeah, it's really kind of putting her through a lot of emotions. It's like, why? Because she didn't
Right.
really add anything. She was just very emotional. She goes, you put these bad thoughts out of your head. So she goes, I don't really remember the filming of it, and and she really didn't want to. And yeah, it was like, okay, why put this lady through this? But yeah, I think they probably had good intentions, but it didn't play out. They probably should have cut it because I don't know, it didn't really add anything to me. Um, but yeah, and then there's the interview with the scholar that talks about giallos, which is really good. They talk to an editor and the DP and one of the makeup artists from the movie. Really really cool stuff. And also one of the things I really, and also they have that taped interview that Lucio Fulci recorded. That's kind of really fascinating. You get his opinion on some of the horror directors of the day. He talks about Kubrick and The Shining, saying that he's a great director, but he really shouldn't do horror. That horror should be only an hour and 30 minutes, and the Kubrick kind of kind of the goes kind of crazy with that. But you also get a flavor, even though you only have that interview, you really get a flavor of Fulci. Yeah, both the actresses and I think what the DPs would talk about how angry Felucci would get while directing. He would get angry, but but both actors said it wasn't focused towards them. But you start getting a sense of who the director was, and the DP talks about how he was he really didn't want to get into talking about Felucci, but he basically said that he was kind of abrupt and kind of gruff on set. He didn't know how to finesse what he wanted. And he talked about how this one actress that's not in the movie but had done a different movie with Felucci, and also another movie that the DP had filmed on. He said that in that movie that she did that wasn't a Felucci movie, she was willing to do all sorts of nudity and whatnot. She wasn't a prude or anything, but when she was doing the movie with Felucci was like, "Okay, now it's time to get your tits out." And so she was like, "No, no, I'm not doing that." So yeah, he didn't really know how to maybe be polite about things. So just kind of added to the character of of Felucci during those interviews.
Well, some would say you could make an argument that this was Felucci's angriest film. He was screaming. Maybe he was screaming at the Catholic Church in small town backwardness. But that's kind of like where if you put that in perspective and you go like a few inches past, you know, the thing, and you get to know the history of the movie and whatnot. That is pretty brave filmmaking for 1970 to for early 70s Italy. That is very much, a thumb in the nose of a lot of the things that are taken for granted at that time. But yeah, well, it just goes to show that it was very good. The dummy didn't work for me. The dubbing was fine. That's something you get used to as you watch more of these things. Like it really didn't bother me at all. Sometimes it can, if it's just off, it'll pull you out of the film all the time. But not
Yeah,
not true for last week and this week either. Um, but the social commentary was excellent. It was just, again, it
yeah,
doesn't
spot
tell you
on.
what to think. It shows you, it tells you a story.
Yeah. Yeah, kind of a slice of life there. But yeah, yeah, very, very controversial. And like you were saying, the Catholic Church angle of it, very controversial for especially for Italy being a Catholic country.
Poke.
That's really, yeah, you're really, really poking the bear there. But yeah, so and Felucci, from the interviews that are there, he's not real religious. Yeah, he kind of based. He's gone through a lot of tragedy in his life, and yeah, he does have a struggle with faith. Whether or not he believed in everything. But yeah, so this movie sort of, yeah, like you said, it was kind of born out of his struggles with maybe faith and questioning the priesthood and all of that. So yeah, it's a very, very challenging movie. It's very adult in the sense that it deals with adult themes that really gets you to think. Now I've seen a few different Felucci movies and they're of varying quality. Maybe we'll get to some of those in future episodes because he definitely has an interesting library. I so, and it's hard to recommend some of his work, but this movie is definitely a recommend. It's I think if you're ready for controversial topics and can really this movie has so much stuff that you could dig into. Like you said, a social commentary is not your average, even though Giallo is sort of inspired and created the slasher genre. Uh, this movie has those elements to it, but it's so much more. It's just a smorgasbord you can see why Tarantino was influenced by this movie. And also, one other thing that I
Absolutely.
wanted to say, Barbara Boucher, she said that she does talk about Tarantino in that, and evidently he calls her his muse, or at the time of the interview, he called her his muse, and that he only would do the certain convention if she was going to be there,
That's
and
so funny.
because he wanted to meet her, and yeah, she talked about how influenced he was with the work of Fulci and the various Italian directors, but yeah, yeah, if you're interested in Tarantino and haven't tried a Giallo, this is definitely something to check out and something that maybe you could watch in reference to his movies. But it's a damn good movie in its own right and stands, head and shoulders above a lot of other movies.
Yeah, no, I agree with you wholeheartedly. This one was this is in the top pantheon of giallo films for me. I'm really looking forward to seeing more of this director's films. Um, this is a must watch. This is something that if you want to watch if you want to kick off a really good film series, whether you're in the nerddom or not, certainly a nerd for films, or horror or giallos or noirs or whatever, or just really cool looking 70s films. Um, this is the place for it. This is the place to watch. So I wholeheartedly recommend that as well with you. And with that, I think we're coming up to the end.
So,
Awesome, awesome. Yeah,
like I said, the
awesome.
caboose, like you usually say.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, this is the caboose. I've been ML, and we thank you so much for subscribing and commenting and subscribe. We love that back and forth, and we hope to have that more in 2026. So I've been Mike.
And I'm Tom, and I got to say, please, please do not torture Donald Duck.